What's up, everybody? This is Marshall, and today you have entered once again the realm of Planet Plex. It's fun to come in all dramatic like that, right? All right, so this is something that I wanted to show a friend who is modular curious, and because I wanted to show them and explain to them some basics of Eurorack modular or modular synthesis. I figured, why not make a video? And then I figured, why not make a video that I can share to other people, and maybe it'll be helpful for other people. I've been on my Eurorack modular journey for about 3 years, and so I'm relatively new to this, but I've spent a lot of time using this equipment, and I can at least share some of the basics of the knowledge that I have. So let's get into it. What I wanted to do today was I just wanted to explain the best I can what a basic, super simple synth voice is. The very basics when it comes to synthesis. Now, when you create, when you say get a keyboard that has all kinds of sounds and stuff, like a Casio keyboard, or just some kind of keyboard like a synthesizer or something, it's a pre-made instrument. With modular synthesis, it's interesting because you start at a very primitive level to that, which is you create your own instrument. And that might seem like kind of like, well, why would you go through all that trouble to create your own instrument? Well, the thing is, that means you can literally do anything. The sky is the limit. That's kind of the cool thing about it. You can create your own instrument, and you can combine things in different ways that are really interesting, that are experimental, or just maybe a different way of thinking about it. And so what we're doing here is I'm going to show you how to basically create that super basic, I know I'm saying basic a lot, but that super simple synth voice that you would see in a typical keyboard from scratch. This will hopefully help you understand how modular synthesis works, because if you understand this basic concept, you understand the most important parts of what it is to do modular synthesis. There's so much to explore. There's so many different synthesis concepts to explore, but this is where it all kind of starts. So what we have here, I'll just go through the modules a bit. What we have here is an oscilloscope. This will just show us what's going on in these modules when it comes to the waves and voltage and stuff. This right here is an oscillator, and that is the thing that makes the sound. This module is called Pamela's New Workout. Most people in Eurorack have this module. It's a very popular, well-known module. And I just happen to have a weird faceplate on it, but that's what this is. But this is a clock module, and it sends out gates and triggers, but this one happens to do so much more. That's why it's so popular, because it also has things like LFOs, sample and hold, so many things. You can basically use it as a sequencer, even though it's not technically a sequencer, all that kind of stuff. You'll learn more about that in the future, but for now, just know that this is a clock source, and it sends out gates and triggers. That's the big, most important part. And this is another one that does a lot of things, a lot more than I'm going to do here today. But it's a modulation source. And the main modulation I'm going to focus on today is the ADSR: attack, decay, sustain, release. There's different versions, so many different versions of this type of module. There's also LFOs in here. There's other modulation things you can do here. But for today's purposes, we'll be calling this an ADSR. This is a quad VCA. A VCA means voltage controlled attenuator. Basically what this does is it's a way to control the volume or the voltage. And it does some other things. It does offset and other things as well. This module right here this is like a bonus module. These two modules here are a bonus module. This one is too, because you don't have to see what's going on. I'm just doing this for the benefit of teaching purposes for the most part and learning purposes. That's why I have it. So this right here, this is kind of a little bit of a fancy schmancy filter. It's also kind of a distortion source and some other things, but what we're focusing on, what this is right now, is a filter. Some people would argue that in a basic, simple synth voice, you would have a filter as well. You don't have to have a filter though. And then this again is bonus. This is just like an effects. It's called Performer by Modulates Modular. It's just kind of an effects thing. I just happen to have it there. It's kind of my output, but I'm also going into a different interface. That's another thing you need to know. Just like anything else with the computer, with, you know, anything, you need a way to hear the sound, and that's through some kind of an interface that goes to some kind of speakers or headphones or something like that. That's not what this is. This has like a delay and a reverb and a glitch effect and a tape stop effect and some other things, some compression. That's just like an end of chain effects thing. And that's going into an interface, and that's how we'll hear the sound today. And then this right here is called zero control. This again does so much. It kind of does partially what this does. It's a sequencer. It does a bunch of things, but for all intents and purposes today, I have this here just to show the keyboard and what you can do, because this is just a touch sensitive keyboard. So it's just a little bit of a fancy version of a keyboard, I guess. And so that way I can kind of demonstrate what's going on here in the synth voice. You don't need this part, but you can use a keyboard as well. You know, there's a lot of different ways to kind of go about all this. So having explained that, one other thing that I need to explain, if you know nothing about modular synthesis and in general, the way everything works, the whole ecosystem of how everything works is through something called CV, which stands for control voltage. And what it really is, man, it's all about the vibrations. Like, just think about the hippie stuff. Like, it's all about the vibrations, man. It's like it's the energy, it's the waves, you know, it's it's the vibrations. That's what all of this is. It's control voltage, it's electricity. And all music, all sound, all voice, anything you hear, everything really, I mean, you want to get into like quantum physics and stuff. I mean, everything is kind of vibrations actually, and energy. And so that being said, that's one of the things that's really cool actually about synthesis, is you're kind of playing with like some of the fundamental elements of nature to a certain degree: electricity, lightning, and, you know, and waves and energy and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Like, you could really get kind of meta and deep with this stuff. But for now, we're just talking about making funny sounds. Okay, so here we go. So basically, again, it all starts with the oscillator. And what this does is it generates a tone, just a plain sound. It has no beginning, it has no end. It's just one single vibration. And you use these other modules to shape that vibration and to control that vibration, i.e. control voltage. It's all voltage. Even the sounds that you hear is voltage. If you hear, like, if you were to have a sampler here and you were to sample different things, even that is very complex, complicated voltage and vibrations. I mean, I think, as far as I understand, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist or nothing, but, you know, from my understanding, that's kind of how it works. So anyways, so first thing, we'll go right out of the oscillator. And again, all these modules do different things as well, but we're going to focus on the basics here. So there we go. You hopefully hear that sound. If you're listening in headphones, you could hear it better. I'll change the sound a little bit so you can hear it. Even, Here we go. Turn this down so it's not too bad, but that's just like a square wave. And that's the typical wave you would hear like on old like Nintendo songs and stuff. The square wave was like kind of big. You know, there's also like a sawtooth wave, or different versions of it. They sound different. There's just, you know, that's your kind of basic waves. And this is moving at a certain frequency. So you can kind of see it if I turn this up. It changes the pitch. When you change the frequency, it changes the pitch. And even more here. And you hear that stepping, how it's like boom, boom, boom. That's only because it's being quantized. If I take the quantization off, which quantized just means that it keeps it within a specific, like the notes that we know. So if I turn it off, you get all the notes, the microtones, the stuff that you can't get in a piano. So this is just how this particular oscillator works. We're going to keep it on quantize because that'll just make it simple. There are such things as independent quantizer modules that do that separately, but this particular oscillator does have a quantizer on it, so we'll use it. All right, so that's that wave. That top trace is what this is, if that's not obvious. So now we don't just want a constant sound, right? Like, so we want to create what's called the synth voice, which is something that will help you to kind of shape it and use it more in a musical fashion. So what we have is things like gates and triggers, which you can get out of this. I can also get it out of this, but we'll start with that. So let's see. I'm on 160 BPM. Now if I start this, you could see these lights are flashing. Those are gates. So what they do, it looks actually like this. In fact, what we're going to do is take one out of here so you can see exactly what's going on. Alright, so what I did was I turned the kind of speed up on what we're seeing, but this is so you can see what this gate is doing. So every time this light goes on, that gate goes up. Every time it goes off, it goes down. So, but that is at a much lower frequency than the oscillator is at. So that's why, you know, I have to change the time and everything. So what I can do is I can take this slower square wave, which basically they're the same thing. These two things are exactly the same, except for one is faster and one is slower. So I'm going to take this slower one, which is called an LFO, or in this case, it's used as a gate. And I'm going to take that to control what we're hearing in here. Take that same wave and I can put it into the pulse. And now you're going to hear what it's doing is it's starting to shape the sound. Okay, so now you can see this is going into the 1 volt per octave, which is how you change the note that it's playing. And mostly I'm showing you this just so you can see that when it goes up, it changes the frequency of the oscillator. So that means you're going to hear a different pitch. And then when it goes down, it resumes back to its original pitch. And this is just a way of showing you how, you know, this is modulating this. And you're able to start creating a synth voice. And this is what that sounds like. Not the most pleasant thing, but it's to demonstrate how that works. We're going to get a little bit deeper now with this. All right, so the next thing is we use an ADSR, which is, again, it's the attack. So you're changing like the shape of things. Like the most simple way to do it is an attack and a release. And there are modules that don't even do the DS part of it. They just do the attack and release. So that can shape this sound here. So what we need to do is take this gate and put it into this and use the ADSR to shape it. Now, it's hard to do it with my hands, but you know, it'll have like a different shape. You've probably seen what they're called as envelopes. They're called envelopes because they kind of envelop the sound in a certain way. So it's not easy to explain this stuff as it seems. Like in my mind, it seems simple, but so here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this gate, and I'm taking it out of here, and I'm going to put it into here. So we're going to take the shape from here, and we're going to put it into the volt per octave. Actually, first we're going to put it into here so we can see what's going on. And then we'll put it to the volt per octave. Okay, so now what we have here is an envelope. And we got a sharp attack, or relatively, it's not that sharp actually, it could be sharper. That's even sharper. So that means it's starting fast. I can make it start slower by pushing the attack up, and I can put it down. And then we have the decay, which is once you hit that sharp attack, how long it takes to find its way down to the sustain level. And then the sustain is the longer line. That's how it's going to hold the note. And then the release is how fast or slow that note goes away. And you can see it's following that gate. But if I put the release up, it extends the gate a bit. So let's hear how that sounds. Now let's slow this gate down so that it's easier to hear. So there you go. If I put the attack up, it takes longer to get up. This is changing the shape. If I put the decay up, it's taking longer to descend. Everything I'm doing changes the sound. Now the sustain is lower. Now the release is longer. Now the release is so short that it just, once the sustain is done, it just shuts off. But it doesn't shut off. And the reason why it doesn't shut off and why it's still droning as one sound is because we haven't used a VCA yet. A VCA is how you control the volume. So that way we can make it even more usable. So each one of these steps makes the synth voice a little bit more usable and a little bit more musical. But that doesn't mean you can't use it as a drone and do some funky things to it. And that doesn't mean that that's not musical either. But just for intents and purposes, to make a simple synth voice, this is the steps we're going through. So the next step is the VCA. So let's get that. Now when we do that, this is how we are able to make the voice turn on and off without having to turn. When I'm turning the volume up over here, up and down, that's me being the human VCA. So I could do it by hand, but it's less precise, and that's one way to do it. These your two hands and your fingers are the main modulators of all this stuff. But what's cool is with CV and with using these patch cables and things, we can free up our hands from doing certain things and use our hands for doing, more important controls that we want to control. So we can have what people think of it as all these things, the way you patch all these different modules, that's creating a bunch of invisible hands and fingers that do a lot of the work for you. And you can create all kinds of crazy generative exploratory patches and things like that that kind of make the music on its own, but you can also modify it as you will with your fingers and your hands. So, you know, just think of CV as almost invisible hands to control the sound. So, okay. So next we got the VCA. Now I'm going to put the sound, the oscillator, directly into the VCA now instead. So what happens there is we have the sound coming into here, and we have the sound coming out of here. Let me put the sound coming out of there. These patch cables, you know, that's how you connect that's how you program sound, basically, with modular synthesis. So now we have the sound coming in here, and then this is how we control it. So we got the sound coming in here, sound coming out here, and we use this middle patch cable. We put CV in there to control how this transforms to this, and we hear it. So we've already got the gate going into the envelope. All we need to do now is and we already have the sound coming out of the oscillator and going out. I mean, I don't have the volume up over here yet, but we will. Now all we need to do is, instead of having this go directly into the volt per octave, which really was just changing the pitch, that was just for demonstration purposes. Instead of having that, we're going to put that into this point. And so now this envelope is going to shape the volume for the sound. So now we have the sound turning on and off, and it's being controlled even more. Again, we can continue to shape the sound. Now, see, the thing is with CV, you can control any parameter with CV. So before, I was controlling the notes and how the notes played. Now I'm controlling the volume and how it turns on and off with the same CV source. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can work this. So, and again, this is now attenuating this sound. Now, if you want even more control over it, you can have it so that you control it with your fingers like a keyboard as I touch this, but we have to connect that up. So this is how we do that. Instead of controlling it from this, which is clocked by this is the clock, and that's controlling the ADSR. So now let's take the clock out of the mix. Now we got a drone again, because nothing's making this ADSR work. So what I need to do is, instead of have it come out of the clock, I need to have it come out of the gate from this keyboard. Alright, so now we have this gate instead of this gate. So this was just a regular clock gate that just goes bah, bah, and you can do all kinds of things with this to make it go. You can make it go faster, you can make it go slower, you can, you know, have it do different rhythms, all kinds of different timings and clock divisions, clock multiplications, things like that. But instead of having this control the ADSR, now my finger through this gate, same type of thing. It's the same gate. In fact, let me put it through here so you can see it a little bit better. You'll be able to see it because the ADSR, but hopefully this will be even clearer so you can see all three traces. Every time I press it, you can see the gate. See, now it's at a different rate because it's a human rate. It's the rate that I'm putting it at. I'm controlling it with my finger. And that envelope is going off each time a gate goes into it, and for how long I hold my finger on there. The sustain will let me hold it longer. So this again, this is how you create your own instrument. So what happens is I got a short attack, and then the decay comes down, rather quickly, and then hits this sustain, and as long as I hold my finger on there, this sustain keeps it up. And if I put the release up, when I lift my finger off next time, it'll taper off instead of going right off automatically. Oh, I got to put it up more. Now the thing is, it's no fun if you're just doing it with one note. I mean, there is a certain amount of fun that is, but what we want to do now is put the pitch, control the pitch of this, control the frequency and sound of this oscillator, the notes. So what I need to do now with that is this row controls this CV output. All right, so what we're going to do is take this row, which we're using as the pitch, take it out of here, and in Eurorack Modular, 1 volt per octave. I can explain that if you want, but basically you always know that you put wherever you want to change the pitch, you always put it into the 1 volt per octave. That there's technical reason why you do that. It's not that hard to understand, but I don't really want to confuse you with that. Just know that when you want to change the pitch, you put the thing that's controlling the pitch into the 1 volt per octave. So now each one of these things, these knobs, are turned to a different voltage, and they're going to play different notes. And because this is quantized, it'll be a note, within the typical, Western scale. So here we go. I've made my own instrument. Isn't that cool? Like, it's just so cool. If I turn down the release, it does that. If I turn it up, it stays for a long time. I can have the attack go up slower. So I just made my own, piano, kind of. I'm going to put the attack down a little bit. If I put it down all the way, it's even more immediate. So there's so many different more ways you can modulate it, but that is your basic, patch. That's your basic synth voice right there. You don't need more than that, really, but there's even simpler ways to do it. Some modules are a whole synth voice within just one module. But typically, you use different modules to do different things. So hopefully you're understanding that. And then again, what we can do is we can start getting fancy with it. We have these clocks, so I could use this to modulate a certain parameter. What would I want to modulate here? I can just use it with the CV for this. So now when I press this, you're going to hear a change in the sound. You hear that? Now if I speed it up, actually an even better way to speed it up is to go to that channel, multiply it, See, that one's going faster now. And I can turn this into an LFO, like a sine wave LFO. So now it's got that kind of vibe going. We'll go back to that, and I can turn down the division. So we got some, like, you know, Pac-Man things going on. I'm just playing with the pitch there. So, you know, that's just one thing. We can modulate it with that. Another thing we can do is, again, we can put this voice that we've created through a filter and play around with that. So we'll do that. We can do the resonance of the filter. This is a very noisy filter, so I'm trying not to blow your ears out. Again, we can get into distortion. And then this one, this is not on every filter, but this has wave folding on it. So when I do that, it's going to start sounding more and more crazy. So you can see how you can quickly get to some interesting things. Again, this is has effects on it. You can put reverb. Whoops. Hold the reverb on there. Band pass, we'll put on high pass. It's a little bit easier when let's sequence this real quick. Instead, we'll do sequence. See, that frees up my hand. Now I don't have to keep pressing it, but I could press it if I want. That's a glitch effect. And we got the tape. I mean, this is a crazy voice. It doesn't have to be this crazy. So I'll stop that for now. So hopefully you kind of get what I'm trying to show you. I can tell already this video is going to take some editing. But yeah, I don't know. That is your basic like voice. Again, oscillator, VCA, an envelope, which ADSR envelope, same thing. That's kind of all you need, but like we're using this to trigger the envelope, so we have a clock as well, so a gate of some sort. It's really interesting once you get into it because there's so many different techniques. So it's really fun, and really you don't even have to know all those concepts and techniques. You just experiment, play around, and you'll be doing some of those concepts without even realizing it just by playing around. So hopefully this was very understandable. Hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for watching. If it was, please like, comment, and subscribe. And there will probably be more videos like this if I'm able to figure out how to do them. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.